My mom hijacked my daughter's 18th bash to fund my niece's luxury gala. My girl found out when the venue called to confirm the new VIP menu. She cried in her room all night. I knocked, sat on her bed, and smiled. Pack a bag. We leave at 6. I didn't tell her I had booked Tokyo. I didn't tell her I had already frozen the account paying for my niece's party for $14,200. By the time we landed, my sister had sent 89 messages. The call came at 4:17 on a Thursday afternoon. I am a cloud architect. My job is to design secure data environments and fix critical vulnerabilities when a system gets breached. I was standing in front of a whiteboard, trying to explain to 3 senior engineers why a specific firewall configuration was leaving our client exposed to a massive data leak. My phone lit up on the conference table. The caller ID read Marin, the glass house at Cedar Cove. I almost ignored it. We were in the middle of a major deployment. Then I remembered that the final catering confirmation for my daughter Piper's 18th birthday and high school graduation party was due this week. I held up a finger to my team, asked for 30 seconds, and stepped out into the quiet hallway of my office building. "Hi, this is Sloan," I answered, keeping my voice low. "Hi Sloan, this is Marin from the Glass House. I am just calling to confirm the updated event details for Saturday, October 12th. I smiled, looking out the glass window at the downtown skyline. Perfect. Piper has been asking me every single day if the outdoor pottery station and the string lights are finalized. Marin let out a polite, professional laugh. Yes, the outdoor setup is locked in. We just need to verify the name change and the final head count for the plated service. I stopped walking. My hand froze on the door handle of the conference room. The what? The name change. My mouth went dry. All the saliva just vanished. What name change? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of typing. Marin cleared her throat. The event is now listed as Fallon's 18th birthday influencer gala. My brain is trained to process anomalies. It immediately started running a diagnostic on the information I was just handed. October 12th. 30 guests. 1 acoustic guitarist. A clay-making station. 1 daughter named Piper. 0 daughters named Fallon. Fallon is my sister Blair's daughter. Marin, I said, keeping my voice dangerously level. My daughter's name is Piper. Another pause. This one felt heavy, thick with sudden awkwardness. Oh, I am so sorry. The change request came through on Tuesday. From who? It was authorized by Valerie. Your mother. My fingers went ice cold. The chill started at my fingertips and traveled straight into my chest. Did my mother cancel Piper's event? It appears the reservation itself was not canceled, Marin said gently. The guest of honor and several major selections were changed. Selections? What selections? The package was upgraded. Marin sounded like she was reading from a screen she wished she could turn off. The gold-tier floral package, a custom step and repeat banner, the VIP plated menu with Wagyu beef sliders, and a full champagne tower for the adults. I leaned against the cool glass of the hallway window. How much? Your current balance, pending on the card on file, is $14,200. I closed my eyes. The original budget Piper and I had agreed on, the one I had saved up for, was $4,000. My mother had offered to coordinate the final details with the venue because my current project at work was brutal, and I was logging 60-hour weeks. She told me she wanted to do something special for her granddaughter. Apparently, doing something special meant erasing my child entirely to fund a vanity project for her other granddaughter. Do not change anything else, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Sloan, I need to tell you that Valerie indicated she was acting with your explicit permission. She said you were funding this as a joint family celebration. She was not. All right. Please email me every change request, every timestamp, every single authorization note you have on file. I need the entire log. I can do that. And Marin? Do not call Valerie yet. I hung up the phone. The silence in the hallway was deafening. Before I could even process the sheer magnitude of the betrayal, my phone vibrated in my hand. A FaceTime call. Piper. I answered. Her beautiful face filled the screen. She was sitting in her bedroom, wearing an oversized thrifted sweater, her dark curly hair pulled back with a claw clip. But her eyes were red. Puffy. She was crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Mom?" She choked out. "Hey, sweetie. What is it? Why did the venue call me?" Everything inside me stopped. "What?" "They called my number by mistake first," she said, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "I was listed as the secondary contact because Marin wanted to ask me about the table linens last month. They said they wanted to confirm the spelling of Fallon's handle for the neon sign." I felt a physical pain in my chest. "Oh, Piper." I told them they had the wrong party. Her voice was shrinking, cracking under the weight of the humiliation. "They said Grandma changed it." "Mom, is my party canceled?" "No. Mom, it is not canceled." "Then why did Grandma say that Fallon needed the venue more than I did?" I did not answer quickly enough. My silence was the answer. Piper looked away from the camera, staring down at her lap. The devastation on her face was something I will never forget. It was not just disappointment. It was the realization that in our family hierarchy, she did not matter. "She just has more followers, Sloane. Piper doesn't even have friends. Why does she need all that space?" That was the quote ringing in my ears. The justification my mother and sister would inevitably use. My mother had hijacked a milestone in my daughter's life to fund a superficial content creation event for my niece. And she used my money to do it. "I am coming home," I told her. "You are working." "I am done." She looked at me, her eyes brimming with fresh tears. "I am coming home, Piper. Just hold on." I ended the call. I did not scream. I did not throw my phone. I walked back into the conference room, looked at my lead engineer, and said, "I have a family emergency. Handle the firewall." I packed my laptop. I was not just dealing with a difficult family. I was dealing with a security breach. And I knew exactly how to lock them out. Driving home through the dense afternoon traffic, my mind did not focus on the road. It drifted back. The betrayal I was feeling right now was not an isolated incident. It was the crowning achievement of a lifetime of being the family scapegoat. I make $155,000 a year now. I built a life out of nothing, entirely on my own, while my sister Blair played the role of the golden child. Blair makes maybe $75,000 combined with her husband, yet she lives like she is on reality television. And my mother, Valerie, has spent her entire life enabling Blair's delusions of grandeur, usually at my expense. My success, my stability, was never celebrated in our family. It was just viewed as a resource. A bank account they could tap into whenever Blair's lifestyle exceeded her income. If I succeeded, it was ignored. If I failed, it was analyzed at the dinner table. But the worst part was not how they treated me. It was how they treated Piper. My mind walked through the museum of pain they had built for my daughter over the years. Exhibit A, the summer Piper was 8 years old. My mother had promised to take both Piper and Fallon to a theme park for a 3-day weekend. Piper was ecstatic. She was a quiet kid, always drawing or reading, and this trip was the only thing she talked about for months. She made a countdown chain out of construction paper. 20 loops. Every morning, she proudly tore one off. 3 days before the trip, my mother called me. "Small change of plans, Sloane," she had said, her tone breezy, like she was discussing the weather. "Fallon is bringing her best friend Chloe. So space in the car is tight. It might be easier if Piper sits this one out. We will do something else later." I remember looking across the kitchen. Piper was at the table, coloring a picture of a roller coaster, the last 3 paper loops resting next to her crayons. "You invited her," I said. "She has been counting down for weeks." "I know, but Fallon really wants Chloe there, and you know how Fallon gets if she does not have her friends. Do not make this into a thing, Sloane. Family helps family. Family helps family." That was their favorite weaponized phrase. It meant I was supposed to sacrifice my child's joy so my sister's child would not throw a tantrum. Piper found out. She did not cry loudly. She just quietly gathered up her crayons, took the remaining paper chain, folded it neatly into a square, and threw it in the trash. I took her to the beach that weekend, but the light in her eyes was gone. She had learned early that her place in the family was at the bottom. Exhibit B, Christmas, when the girls were 12. The irony of this one still makes my blood boil. We were all sitting in my mother's living room, surrounded by wrapping paper. Valerie handed Fallon a large, heavy box. Fallon ripped it open to reveal a brand new, top-of-the-line tablet with a stylus and a keyboard case. Easily $1,000. Fallon shrieked, instantly taking selfies. Then Valerie handed Piper her gift. A thin, flat envelope. Piper opened it. It was a $50 gift card to a big box store. I do not care about equal dollar amounts. Kids do not need spreadsheets to feel loved. But then my mother looked at me and said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, Fallon really needs the good tech Sloan. She has a brand to build. She is so social and outgoing. Piper just likes sitting in her room anyway, so I figured she could just buy some books or whatever. Piper looked at the gift card, then looked at Fallon's glowing screen. She gave a small, polite smile, said thank you, and slipped the card into her pocket. Later that night, in the car ride home, she asked me, did I do something wrong? Why does Grandma think I am not worth a real present? I had to pull the car over because I was crying. I told her she was worth everything, but I knew the damage was done. Exhibit C, the camp loan. When the girls were 15, Fallon wanted to go to this elite, out-of-state performing arts summer camp. It cost $4,500. Blair called me, sobbing. She said Fallon would lose her spot if they did not pay the deposit by midnight. Sloan, you make good money, Blair pleaded. You are single, you only have one kid, your expenses are low. Fallon has worked so hard for this. Do not ruin her summer just because you want to hoard your cash. Then my mother called. She laid on the guilt so thick I could hardly breathe. You are being selfish, Sloan. Family helps family. Why are you punishing your niece just because you are jealous of Blair's happy marriage? It was insane logic, but they wore me down. I transferred the $4,500. Blair sent me a single heart emoji. No thank you call. No repayment plan. For months later, while I was eating ramen to make up for the budget deficit, Blair posted photos of her and her husband on a luxury cruise in the Bahamas. When I called her out on it, she laughed. Are you seriously tracking that? Family helps family, Sloan. Relax. I never saw a dime of that money back. For years, I swallowed it. I thought if I was just calm enough, generous enough, useful enough, the scoreboard would eventually disappear. I thought my mother would finally see Piper and love her the way she loved Fallon. I was wrong. The events of today proved that they did not just view me as a resource, they viewed my daughter as an obstacle to be removed. Have you ever kept the receipts of your family's favoritism? Have you ever logged the exact moments they made you feel like you were not enough? Let me know in the comments. Because I did. I kept every mental receipt. And they were about to become my best weapon. When I finally pulled into the parking garage of our apartment building, my hands were shaking. I sat in the driver's seat for a full 2 minutes, forcing myself to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4. I needed to understand exactly how Valerie had bypassed my security protocols. How did she get access to the venue and my money? It started innocently enough 6 months ago. Piper and Fallon have birthdays only 2 weeks apart. Blair wanted a massive, over-the-top blowout for Fallon. She was talking about renting a private yacht or a rooftop club, hiring professional videographers, and having multiple outfit changes. Fallon was an influencer now, you see. She had 50,000 followers on social media, mostly doing dance trends and makeup tutorials. To Blair, this was the equivalent of Fallon winning an Oscar. Piper, on the other hand, just wanted something real. We toured the glass house at Cedar Cove, a beautiful botanical garden with a glass conservatory. Piper fell in love with it. She wanted a relaxed evening with 30 of her closest friends, an acoustic guitar player, a taco bar, and a station where everyone could paint small clay pots to take home. The total cost was $4,000. I paid the $1,000 deposit from a dedicated event bank account I had set up just for this party. In August, my project at work went into overdrive. I was barely sleeping. My mother, sensing an opportunity, offered to help coordinate the final vendor details. You look exhausted, Sloane, she had said, bringing over a casserole. Let me do this. Let me handle the florist and the caterer. It will be my gift to Piper. I just want to feel involved. Against my better judgment, I gave her a secondary debit card linked only to the event account. I thought it was safe. I had funded it with the exact remaining balance of $3,000, plus a small buffer. There was no overdraft protection. She could only spend what was there. But I had underestimated their sense of entitlement. I pulled out my phone and looked at the email Marin had just sent me, the logs I requested. I scrolled through the timestamps. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Valerie contacts the Glass House. She claims I am stuck in meetings all week and she is acting as my proxy. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Valerie requests to change the guest of honor name to Fallon. Tuesday, 11 a.m. Valerie changes the guest count from 30 to 120. Tuesday, 1 p.m. Valerie upgrades the menu to the VIP plated service. Then came the kicker. How did she authorize $14,200 on an account that only had $3,000 in it? I read Marin's notes. The Glass House has a policy for veteran clients. Because my corporate firm had used them for 3 massive holiday parties in the past, my personal profile was flagged as a trusted corporate account. That status came with a perk, the ability to request a limit increase and bill the final balance to an invoice due after the event, without requiring a new contract signature up front. Valerie found this out. She leveraged my professional reputation to secure a line of credit for Blair's daughter. I felt sick. While I was reading, my phone rang again. It was Blair. I stared at the screen. I knew I should not answer it. I knew I should stick to the plan forming in my head. But I needed to hear it. I needed to hear exactly how they were justifying this. I swiped accept. Hello. Sloane. Blair's voice was chipper, frantic, buzzing with manic energy. Listen, Mom said the venue might have called you. We were going to tell you tonight, I swear. Tell me what, Blair? I kept my voice flat, giving her nothing. Well, Fallon's original venue fell through. The yacht company double-booked us. It was a total disaster. Fallon was devastated, crying her eyes out. She has sponsors expecting content from this party, Sloane. We were desperate. And Mom remembered that you had the Glass House booked, and Piper is just, you know. I know what? Piper is just so low maintenance. Blair laughed, a nervous, dismissive sound. She does not even like big crowds. She only has a handful of friends. Fallon has an image to maintain. We figured Piper would not mind sharing. Sharing? I asked. Marin said the name on the event was changed to Fallon. Not Piper and Fallon. Just Fallon. And the guest list is 120 of your friends. Where exactly is Piper in the shared event? Well, obviously Piper is invited. Blair sounded offended that I was even asking. We were going to set up a little table for her in the corner. We can even get her a separate cupcake so she feels special. But Sloane, try to understand. This is a business opportunity for Fallon. It is a luxury gala. We needed the gold floral package to match her aesthetic. Piper's little clay pots were just not going to fit the vibe. The vibe. They erased my daughter's milestone to fit a vibe. And the money? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. The $14,000? Blair scoffed. Oh, come on. You make more than enough to cover it. Consider it an investment in your niece's future. Family helps family, right? Besides, Mom already authorized it, so it is a done deal. Do not be dramatic and ruin this for Fallon. We have dress fittings all afternoon. Just pay the invoice when it comes. Love you, bye. She hung up. I lowered the phone from my ear. I was not angry anymore. Anger is hot. Anger makes you yell and scream and type furious text messages you regret later. What I felt was cold. Absolute, freezing, crystalline cold. They thought they had outsmarted me. They thought that because they had manipulated the venue and authorized the charges, I would just roll over and accept the financial burden, just like I had with the summer camp, just like I had my whole life. They thought they could bully my daughter into sitting at a corner table at her own party. They forgot one crucial detail. I am a cloud architect. I manage access controls for a living. And I was about to revoke all of theirs. I walked out of the parking garage and took the elevator up to our apartment. When I unlocked the front door, the apartment was dead silent. Usually, Piper would be playing music in her room or watching a video in the living room. Today, there was nothing. I walked down the hall and pushed her bedroom door open. Piper was standing in front of her full-length mirror. She was wearing the dress she had bought for the party. It was a beautiful, dark green vintage dress she had found at a thrift store for $85. She had spent weeks altering it herself, taking in the waist, fixing the hem. She loved that dress. Now she was just staring at her reflection, her arms hanging limply at her sides. Her face was completely blank. It was the look of someone who had internalized a terrible lie that she was not worth celebrating. "Piper," I said softly. She did not turn around. "Mom," she whispered. "Madison texted me. Madison is one of Fallon's cheerleader friends. She asked me if I was going to wear something nice to Fallon's gala or if I was going to look homeless like usual." My heart shattered into a million sharp pieces. She knows, Mom. Everyone knows Grandma took my party and gave it to Fallon. I do not want to go. I do not want to party anymore. Let them have it. I just want to disappear. I walked up behind her, put my hands on her shoulders, and looked at our reflections in the mirror. I did not offer empty platitudes. I did not tell her it was going to be okay, or that Grandma loved her deep down. I was done lying to protect my abusers. "You are not disappearing," I told her reflection. "And they are not getting your party." I left her standing there, walked into the kitchen, and sat down at the island with my laptop. It was time to initiate a hard reset. First, I logged into my primary banking portal. I navigated to the event account. The balance still showed my funds, but the pending charges from the glass house were looming in the background, ready to process the $14,200. I clicked on the Authorized Users tab. Valerie's name was sitting right there, smug and official. Remove user. Confirm. Next, I locked the debit card associated with the account. Status: frozen. Then I picked up my phone and called the fraud department of my bank. I bypassed the automated system and got a representative named David on the line. "Hi, David," I said, my voice steady. "I need to report unauthorized activity on my account." "Are you reporting a stolen card, ma'am?" David asked. "I am reporting unauthorized use by a formerly authorized user. I have just revoked their access. I need to place a hard freeze on all outgoing ACH transfers and block any pending charges from a merchant called the Glass House at Cedar Cove. I am marking those charges as internal fraud." David typed rapidly. "I understand." Placing a hard freeze means the account will reject any attempts to pull funds. If the merchant tries to process that $14,000, it will bounce back as insufficient funds and unauthorized. Perfect. Do it. As David was finalizing the freeze, my phone buzzed with an automated text alert from the bank. It was a decline notification. Valerie had just attempted to swipe the secondary debit card at a luxury boutique in Beverly Hills for $2,000. The transaction was denied. I actually smiled. A real, genuine smile. She was not just stealing the venue, she was trying to buy Fallon a designer dress on my dime, thinking she had unrestricted access to my money. Not anymore. "David, I see a declined transaction just now for $2,000. Please flag that specific attempt in your fraud notes." "Done," David said. "The account is completely locked down, Ms. Sloan. No funds will move without your verbal authorization and a secondary PIN." "Thank you, David." I hung up the phone. Step 1 was complete. The money was safe. But the venue was still holding a contract with Fallon's name on it, and my family still thought they were going to get away with this. I needed to remove Piper from the blast zone before I detonated the rest of the bridge. I opened a new tab on my browser. I bypassed domestic flights. I bypassed cheap weekend getaways. I went straight to international departures out of LAX. Piper had been studying Japanese culture for 2 years. She loved the art, the pottery, the architecture. She had a Pinterest board dedicated to Tokyo that she updated every week. I found a direct flight leaving at 6 p.m. tonight. 2 seats in business class. The total cost was significant, but ironically, it was almost exactly the amount of money Valerie had tried to steal from me for Fallon's party. I did not hesitate. I typed in my credit card information, my primary card, the one they did not know existed, and clicked purchase. Confirmation received. I printed the itinerary, closed the laptop, and walked back into Piper's room. Piper was sitting on the edge of her bed now, still wearing the green dress. She had a tissue crumpled in her hand, staring blankly at the floor. The profound sadness radiating from her made my chest ache, but I pushed the emotion down. I needed to be the anchor right now. I walked over, sat down next to her on the mattress, and bumped my shoulder gently against hers. She let out a shaky breath, but didn't look up. "Take off the dress," I said quietly. She sniffled. "I know. I'm going to put it in the back of the closet. I never want to look at it again." "No," I corrected her. "You are going to pack it. Carefully." That made her stop. She finally looked at me, her red, swollen eyes full of confusion. "Pack it? Pack it where?" I smiled at her. A genuine, bright smile. "Pack a bag, Piper. A suitcase. Whatever you need for a week." Her brow furrowed. "Mom, what are you talking about? Are we going to a hotel?" I shook my head. "We leave at 6. "Leave for where?" "You will find out when we get to the airport. Bring your passport." Her mouth actually fell open. She stared at me, searching my face to see if this was some kind of sick joke. For the first time since she had answered that FaceTime call hours ago, the crushing despair in her eyes was replaced by a tiny spark of bewilderment. "Are you serious?" she whispered. "Very," I said, standing up and opening her closet doors. "Grab your comfortable walking shoes. And maybe a light jacket. I hear the evenings can be a bit chilly this time of year." "Mom, where are we going? Are we going to New York?" "Nope." "Mexico?" "Try again." She stood up, her hands fluttering nervously. "You are insane. We can't just leave. What about the party? What about Grandma and Aunt Blair?" I stopped pulling sweaters from her shelf and turned to face her. My voice was calm, steady, and utterly resolved. "Grandma and Aunt Blair are no longer our problem. They made their choice. Now I am making mine. You are my daughter, Piper. You are the only thing in this world that matters to me. They tried to make you feel small so they could feel big. We are not going to stick around and watch them play pretend with my money. We are leaving." She looked at me for a long moment, the tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of humiliation. They were tears of relief. She threw her arms around my neck and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Thank you," she sobbed into my shoulder. I rubbed her back. "Go pack. We have a flight to catch." While she scrambled around her room, pulling clothes from drawers with frantic energy, I went into my own bedroom to pack my suitcase. My phone, which had been sitting silently on my nightstand, suddenly began to vibrate. And it did not stop. The family group chat, ironically named Family First, was blowing up. "Blair, Sloan, what the hell is going on with the card?" "Blair, Mom is at the boutique and her card keeps declining." "Valerie, Sloan, call me immediately. This is embarrassing. The cashier is looking at me like I am a criminal." "Blair, did you forget to transfer the funds? Fix this right now. Fallon needs this dress for the step and repeat photos." I watched the text bubbles pop up on the screen, one after another. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. They were actively trying to steal from me, and they were angry that the theft wasn't going smoothly. I didn't reply. I didn't type a single word. I just threw my clothes into my suitcase, zipped it shut, and grabbed my passport. By the time the Uber arrived at our apartment building, my phone showed 32 unread messages. "Valerie, Sloan, this is not funny. I know you're seeing these. Blair, you are ruining Fallon's day. Stop being so petty and unlock the card. Blair, I swear to God, Sloan, if you do not fix this, I am coming over to your apartment." Let them come, I thought as I loaded our bags into the trunk of the car. They would find an empty apartment and a locked door. As the car merged onto the highway toward LAX, Piper looked out the window, watching the city lights blur past. The tension in her shoulders was finally starting to melt away. She looked at me, a tentative smile playing on her lips. "Are you really not going to tell me where we are going?" she asked. I reached into my purse, pulled out the printed itinerary, and handed it to her. Piper unfolded the paper. She read it once. Then she read it again, holding it closer to her face as if her eyes were deceiving her. She gasped, clapping a hand over her mouth. "Tokyo?" she squeaked, her voice cracking. "Mom, Tokyo?" I laughed. "Surprise. Are you kidding me? Business class to Tokyo. Mom, this must have cost a fortune." I leaned back against the leather seat of the car. "Honestly, Piper, it cost exactly what Grandma was planning to spend on Fallon's party. I figured if I was going to spend $14,000 today, I was going to spend it on the right daughter." She burst into tears again, laughing and crying at the same time. She leaned over and hugged me, burying her face in my coat. It was the best money I had ever spent in my life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Blair again. "Blair, the florist just called. They said the deposit for the gold package did not go through." "What did you do, Sloan?" I pulled the phone out, looked at the glowing screen in the dim light of the back seat, and calmly swiped down to the control center. I pressed the little airplane icon. The cellular signal vanished. The text stopped. The noise stopped. I was executing a hard reset, and the system was finally offline. The flight to Narita was 11 hours long. Once we reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign turned off, Piper reclined her seat into a flat bed, pulled the plush airline blanket up to her chin, and fell fast asleep. Her face looked peaceful, the heavy burden of the day's drama finally lifted from her teenage shoulders. I, on the other hand, did not sleep. I pulled my laptop out of my carry-on bag, placed it on the tray table, and paid $30 for the in-flight Wi-Fi. I wasn't doing this to check social media or watch a movie. I was doing this to build a case. My family thought this was just a petty squabble. They thought I was throwing a tantrum and that I would eventually cave, turn the money back on, and apologize for inconveniencing them. They were relying on my historical compliance. But I wasn't the girl who just swallowed the injustice anymore. I was a professional who spent my days analyzing digital footprints, tracing unauthorized access, and securing compromised environments. I opened my email and began meticulously downloading every document Marin had sent me from the glasshouse. I needed to see exactly how Valerie had orchestrated this coup. I opened the PDF file containing the communication logs. There it was. The smoking gun. Valerie hadn't just called Marin on the phone. To change a legally binding contract, Marin had required written authorization from the primary account holder. From me. I scrolled down and saw an email forwarded by Marin. It was sent from an email address I had never seen before, sloan.t.events@gmail.com. The email read, "Dear Marin, due to my demanding work schedule, I am formally authorizing my mother, Valerie, to make any and all changes to the event contract for October 12th. Please upgrade the event to the VIP package and change the guest of honor to Fallon. I assume full financial responsibility for all upgrades. Best, Sloan." I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in the dark cabin of the airplane. My mother had created a fake email address using my name. She had impersonated me in writing to manipulate a vendor and authorize over $10,000 in new debt. This was no longer just a story of a toxic family favoring one child over another. This was identity theft. This was wire fraud. This was a felony. A cold, calculating calm washed over me. I took screenshots of the fake email. I downloaded the IP address logs from the email headers. I gathered the bank decline notices, the original contract, and the unauthorized change orders, and dropped them all into a secure, encrypted folder on my desktop. Then I opened a new email draft. I typed in the address of Naomi. Naomi is not just my best friend. She is a ruthless, brilliant corporate litigator. We met 5 years ago when I helped secure her law firm's server infrastructure, and we had been close ever since. Naomi knew all about my family. She had listened to me vent over glasses of wine about the Disney trip, the Christmas gift cards, the summer camp loans. She had always told me, Sloane, the minute you want to drop the hammer on them, you give me the word. The word was now. Subject, emergency, fraud and cease and desist request. Hey Naomi, I am currently somewhere over the Pacific Ocean heading to Tokyo with Piper. Long story short, Valerie and Blair hijacked Piper's 18th birthday party to throw a vanity gala for Fallon. In the process, Valerie impersonated me via a fake email address to authorize $14,000 in upgrades at the Glass House. I have already frozen the bank accounts. They have no money, but they still hold the venue reservation under Fallon's name, and they are currently trying to force the vendors to charge my frozen cards. Attached is all the evidence. The fake email, the forged authorization, the bank logs. I need you to contact Marin at the Glass House immediately. Inform them that the authorization they received is fraudulent and that I am the only legal contract holder. Then I want you to draft the most terrifying, ironclad cease and desist letter you have ever written and serve it to Valerie and Blair. I want them legally barred from using my name, my credit, or my likeness. If they try to proceed with this party, I want them fully liable for the debt. Have it ready for when I land. Love, Sloane. I hit send. I watched the progress bar inch across the bottom of the screen until the email vanished into the ether. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my seat, listening to the steady hum of the jet engines. I looked over at Piper, who was breathing softly in her sleep. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. I wasn't dreading the screaming phone calls or the guilt trips. I had built a fortress around my daughter, and I had handed the keys to a legal sniper. The system was locked down. The breach was contained. Now, all I had to do was wait for them to crash into the firewall. If you love seeing toxic entitlement hit a brick wall, hit that like button. Because my lawyer, Naomi, was about to drop a nuclear bomb on them. When the wheels of our plane finally touched down on the runway at Narita International Airport, a wave of profound relief washed over me. The cabin filled with the soft chimes of seatbelt signs turning off and the tired rustling of passengers collecting their belongings. Piper was sitting next to me, her face pressed against the small oval window, staring out at the foreign landscape with wide, disbelieving eyes. She had slept for most of the 11-hour journey, her exhaustion catching up with her all at once. Now, she looked rested. More importantly, she looked happy. As we taxied toward the gate, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I took a deep breath, mentally bracing myself, and swiped up to turn off airplane mode. For a solid 30 seconds, the phone just froze. The screen lagged as the processor tried to handle the sheer volume of data suddenly flooding the receiver. Then, the notifications began to cascade. Ding, 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 ding. It was a relentless, vibrating symphony of panic. By the time the phone finally synced, I had 89 unread text messages, 14 missed calls, and 6 frantic voicemails. I did not open them immediately. I just watched the numbers climb on the little red notification badges. Mom, Piper said, noticing the incessant buzzing in my hand. Is that them? Yes, I replied calmly. Are you going to read them? I smiled, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Not until we get to the hotel. Right now, we are going to clear customs, get on the express train, and find the biggest plate of fresh sushi in Tokyo. And that is exactly what we did. I wanted to create a firewall between my daughter's joy and my family's toxic meltdown. For the next 3 hours, I focused entirely on Piper. We navigated the sprawling, immaculate train stations. We checked into our hotel in Shinjuku, a small but incredibly clean room on the 20th floor that looked out over a sea of neon lights. We walked down to a local restaurant and sat at a wooden counter, watching a chef slice tuna with absolute precision. Watching Piper tentatively dip her food into soy sauce and let out a delighted gasp at the taste, I felt a deep, anchoring sense of certainty. This was the right choice. My family wanted her to sit in a corner and eat a pity cupcake while Fallon paraded around a ballroom. Instead, she was eating world-class food in a city she had dreamed of visiting, unburdened by their mockery. When we finally returned to our hotel room and Piper went into the bathroom to take a shower, I sat on the edge of my bed and pulled out my phone. It was time to assess the damage. I opened the family group chat. The messages were a fascinating study in escalating panic. It started with Blair, sent around the time I was boarding the flight in Los Angeles. Blair, Sloan, answer your phone. The florist needs the $3,000 deposit for the gold package right now and your card is locked. Blair, Sloan, this is not a joke. The venue coordinator is asking for a secondary payment method. Mom is freaking out. Valerie, Sloan, you are humiliating us in front of these vendors. Unlock the account immediately. I am your mother, you do not treat me like this. Then, a few hours later, the tone shifted from demanding to desperate. They must have realized I was not just ignoring them, but that the funds were entirely inaccessible. Blair, what did you do to the bank account? Mom just called customer service, and they told her she is no longer an authorized user. Blair, you cannot do this. We already sent out digital save the dates to Fallon sponsors. Valerie, Sloan, please. Let us just talk about this rationally. Family helps family. Do not ruin your niece's big day over a simple misunderstanding. A simple misunderstanding. That was their phrase for identity theft and emotional abuse. The final message from Blair, sent just an hour before we landed, was dripping with venom. Blair, you're a bitter, selfish person. You are punishing Fallon because you are jealous of our family. You better fix this before we lose the venue dates. You owe us. I stared at the screen, the neon lights of Tokyo reflecting in the glass. They still thought they had the upper hand. They still thought they held the reservation at the Glass House and that they could simply bully me into paying for it later. They had no idea that I had spent my flight building a legal trap. I decided it was time to let them know exactly where they stood. I opened the keyboard and typed a single, definitive message into the group chat. I wrote, the $14,200 is frozen. The secondary card is canceled. I am currently in Tokyo with Piper celebrating her birthday. Fund your own influencer gala. Do not contact me again. I hit send. I did not wait for the inevitable explosion of typing bubbles. I swiped out of the messaging app and opened my email. I had a message waiting for me from Naomi, my lawyer. The subject line simply read, payload delivered. What happens when a family built on manipulation suddenly loses their prime financial target? They panic. And as I was about to find out, their panic was going to cost them dearly. When Piper came out of the shower, wrapped in a fluffy white hotel robe and drying her hair with a towel, she looked at me sitting on the bed. Are they mad? She asked quietly. I looked up from my phone. Yes, they are very mad. Are they going to cancel my party? I patted the empty space beside me on the mattress. Sit down. Let me tell you about what Aunt Naomi did today. Piper loved Naomi. Naomi was the aunt she actually chose, the one who always asked about her art projects and never compared her to Fallon. Piper sat down, her eyes wide with curiosity. I opened Naomi's email and read the summary of her afternoon. While we were flying over the ocean, Naomi had gone to work with the surgical precision of a corporate litigator. Her first call was to Marin, the event coordinator at the Glass House at Cedar Cove. Naomi had not yelled. She had simply introduced herself as my legal counsel and informed Marin that the venue had been targeted by a fraudulent authorization. She forwarded the fake email Valerie had created, along with documentation proving my actual email address, my identification, and the bank fraud logs showing the frozen account. Marin, realizing that her venue was caught in the middle of a potential wire fraud investigation, panicked. She immediately cooperated. Naomi instructed her to revert the entire contract back to its original state. I looked at Piper. Your party is back, I told her. 30 guests. The taco bar. The acoustic guitar. The clay station. It is all locked in under your name, and Valerie is permanently banned from making any changes. The venue has put a password lock on the account. Only you and I know it. Piper stared at me, her mouth slightly open. You got it back? I got it back. But that was only phase 1. Phase 2 was the cease and desist. Naomi had drafted a beautiful, terrifying legal document. It outlined, in incredibly dense legal jargon, the exact statutes Valerie had violated by impersonating me to secure a line of credit. It stated that any further attempts to use my name, my credit cards, or my professional reputation would result in immediate civil litigation and a report to the local authorities for identity theft. Naomi did not just email this document. She hired a process server. While my mother and sister were sitting in my mother's living room, frantically trying to figure out how to pay the florist, a stranger in a suit had knocked on the door and handed Valerie a thick manila envelope. But Naomi was brilliant, and she had included a financial trap. Because Valerie had attempted to sign the upgrade documents and verbally confirmed the changes with the vendors, Naomi argued that Valerie had assumed personal liability for the cancellation fees of the luxury vendors she had engaged. I read Naomi's note at the bottom of the email out loud to Piper. She wrote, "The florist and the custom banner company were very unhappy about the frozen funds. I informed them that Valerie was acting independently. They are now billing her directly for the non-refundable deposits she verbally authorized. She owes them about $1,800. Piper let out a short, shocked laugh. "Wait, Grandma owes them money now?" "Yes," I said, feeling a grim sense of satisfaction. "She tried to spend my money. Now she has to spend her own." For a moment, Piper looked conflicted. The lifelong conditioning of our family dynamic, the instinct to protect the abusers and keep the peace, flickered in her eyes. "Is that too mean, Mom?" I put my arm around her shoulder and pulled her close. "No, sweetie. It is not mean. It is consequence. For your entire life, they have made choices that hurt you, and they never had to pay the price. They thought they could erase you and make me foot the bill. Setting a boundary is not mean. Protecting yourself is not mean." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I am really glad we are in Tokyo." "Me too." But the fallout was far from over. When an enabler is backed into a corner and stripped of their resources, they do not apologize. They recruit. And the next morning, as Piper and I were walking through the stunning gates of the Meiji Shrine, my phone began to ring with numbers I had not seen in months. The flying monkeys had been deployed. If you have ever had to deal with extended family members crawling out of the woodwork to tell you to forgive and forget, you know exactly how exhausting this next part is. But I was not going to let them crack my firewall. Tokyo was everything Piper had dreamed it would be. We spent our days wandering through lush gardens, exploring multi-story art supply stores, and eating pastries shaped like cartoon characters. But while Piper was thriving, my phone was fighting a war on the home front. Valerie and Blair, having been completely cut off from my bank accounts and terrified by the legal letter they had received, realized they could no longer control me directly. So, they activated the family network. It started with Uncle Dave, my mother's older brother. He called me on our third day in Japan. I was sitting on a bench in Yoyogi Park, watching Piper sketch a massive wooden torii gate in her new notebook. I decided to answer, just to see what narrative they were spinning. "Sloan," Uncle Dave sighed heavily into the receiver. "Your mother is a wreck. She has been crying for 2 days straight." "Hello to you too, Uncle Dave." He ignored my greeting. "Listen, I know you and Blair have your differences, but sending a lawyer after your own mother? Over a birthday party? That is taking it entirely too far. You are tearing this family apart." I kept my voice perfectly level. "Did my mother mention that she forged my identity to authorize $14,000 in debt?" Uncle Dave scoffed. "She was just trying to help coordinate the event. She got a little overzealous because she wanted Fallon to have a nice day. You make plenty of money, Sloan. You do not need to threaten her with the police over a few upgraded flowers. You need to drop this legal nonsense, come home, and apologize to your mother." I watched a crow land on a nearby branch. "Uncle Dave," I said smoothly, "if you feel so strongly about Fallon having a luxury gala, you are more than welcome to give Blair the $14,000. I can send you the venue's wire transfer details right now." There was a sudden, deafening silence on the line. "Well," he stammered, "that is not the point. I am on a fixed income. Then do not tell me how to spend my income." I hung up and blocked his number. Over the next 48 hours, I blocked Aunt Susan, 2 cousins, and a family friend I had not spoken to in a decade. They all regurgitated the same script: family drama, forgiveness, being the bigger person. Not one of them asked how Piper felt about her birthday being stolen. But the most surprising message did not come to me. It came to Piper. We were sitting in a small cafe in Harajuku when Piper looked down at her phone, her brow furrowing. "It is Fallon," she said, her voice tight. I stopped stirring my coffee. "What does it say?" Piper read the text out loud. "Hey Piper, I am so sorry about everything. My mom told me that you wanted to cancel your party because you were going to Japan, and that Grandma was just letting me use your venue so it would not go to waste. I did not know they took your money or that you were upset. I hope you are having fun in Tokyo. Happy early birthday." I leaned back in my chair. It was the first message from anyone in that house that resembled an apology. And honestly, I believed Fallon. She was a teenager caught up in her own social media bubble, heavily manipulated by a mother who lived vicariously through her. Blair had lied to her own daughter to make herself look like a hero. "How do you want to handle it?" I asked Piper. Piper stared at her screen for a long time. She did not look angry. She just looked tired of the drama. She typed slowly, her thumbs moving over the glass screen. Then she turned the phone around to show me her reply. It read, "I believe you, Fallon. Thank you for saying sorry. I am still really hurt by what Aunt Blair and Grandma did, so I need some space right now. But I hope you have a good birthday." It was perfect. It was mature, clear, and set a firm boundary without attacking the other person. She was ending the cycle of generational toxicity right there in that cafe. "That is beautiful, Piper," I told her. She hit send, let out a long breath, and picked up her fork to eat her crepe. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought the blocked numbers and the lawyer's letter would finally force them into silence. I underestimated Blair's need for public validation. That evening, Naomi sent me a screenshot. Blair had taken the conflict public. She had posted a long, tearful status on her Facebook page, tagging dozens of family members and friends. The post read, "It breaks my heart to see how money changes people. My sister Sloane has completely lost her mind. She promised to help fund Fallon's 18th birthday, led us on for weeks, and then maliciously canceled the bank cards at the last second, leaving my mother in debt and my daughter in tears. We are now scrambling to put together a backyard barbecue because Sloane decided to steal my mother's money and run off to a luxury vacation in Japan. Please keep our family in your prayers." I read the screenshot twice. My blood went completely cold. They wanted to play the victim on a public stage? They wanted to accuse me of financial abuse in front of our entire extended network? I am a systems architect. When someone spreads a virus, you do not just quarantine it. You expose the source code so everyone can see exactly what it is. It was time to initiate the media reveal. I did not act out of blind rage. I acted with the meticulous, calculating precision of a professional closing a security loophole. It was our last night in Japan. Piper was asleep in the hotel room, her suitcase packed with new clothes, sketchbooks, and a beautiful ceramic tea set she had bought in Kyoto. I sat at the small desk by the window, my laptop open, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark room. I opened Facebook. I had not posted anything in 2 years. I rarely used the platform, which made what I was about to do even more impactful. I created a new public post. I did not write a long, emotional essay about my childhood trauma. I did not call them names. I simply laid out the data. Facts are the ultimate disinfectant for toxic lies. I started typing. Since my sister Blair has decided to make a private family matter public and is currently accusing me of stealing money from our mother, I feel it is necessary to correct the record with actual documentation. I attached the first image, a screenshot of the original contract from the glass house at Cedar Cove, clearly showing Piper's name, the 30-guest count, and the $4,000 total. I planned and funded a modest 18th birthday party for my daughter Piper. The money used was entirely my own. I attached the second image, the fake email address, sloan.t.events@gmail.com. Alongside it, I attached the log showing my mother's name authorizing the changes. My mother, Valerie, created a fraudulent email address to impersonate me. She used this fake identity to illegally alter Piper's contract, removing my daughter's name entirely and replacing it with my niece Fallon's name. She then attempted to authorize over $10,000 in luxury upgrades without my knowledge or consent. I attached the third image, a redacted screenshot of my bank's fraud alert, showing the $14,000 attempted charge from the venue and the subsequent $2,000 decline charge at the Beverly Hills boutique. I did not steal money. I froze my own bank accounts to stop my mother from committing wire fraud to fund Blair's lifestyle. I then took my daughter to Japan so she would not have to sit at a corner table at a party she was erased from. My generosity is not an ATM for other people's vanity. This will be my final public statement on the matter. Any further harassment will be directed to my legal counsel. I tagged Blair. I tagged Valerie. I tagged Uncle Dave. Then I clicked post. I closed the laptop, went to bed, and slept for 8 solid hours. By the time we woke up and headed to the airport for our flight back to Los Angeles, the digital explosion had already leveled their social standing. When I finally checked my phone at the boarding gate, the Facebook post had dozens of comments. The flying monkeys who had been harassing me all week were suddenly backpedaling at light speed. Uncle Dave had commented, "Sloan, I had no idea about the fake email. Valerie told me you just got mad about the flower arrangements. I am staying out of this." Several of Blair's friends, the ones she had been trying to impress with this influencer Gala, had seen the bank decline notices. The illusion of Blair's wealth was shattered. One of the cheer moms commented, "Wait, you were trying to make Sloan pay for the whole thing? That is incredibly messed up, Blair." Blair had deleted her original victim post. Valerie's Facebook profile had been completely deactivated. The silence from their end of the family network was absolute. I had stripped away their ability to control the narrative. By showing the receipts, I had exposed the vast, empty space between their entitlement and their actual reality. They had nothing left to fight with. We boarded the plane and flew home. The air felt lighter. The constant, buzzing anxiety that had lived in the back of my neck for my entire adult life was gone. I had finally uninstalled the malware. 2 weeks after we returned from Tokyo, October 12th finally arrived. The glass house at Cedar Cove was stunning in the early evening light. The glass conservatory glowed warmly against the cool autumn sky. Inside, the space was exactly as Piper had designed it. There were no massive gold floral installations. There was no champagne tower. There was no custom step and repeat banner flashing an influencer's handle. Instead, there were long wooden tables draped in simple navy linens. Small clusters of white wildflowers sat in mason jars. In the corner, an acoustic guitarist played soft, indie folk covers. And out on the patio, a local ceramicist had set up a beautiful pottery station with 2 wheels and rows of clay. Piper wore the dark green vintage dress she had tailored herself. She looked radiant. When she walked into the venue, she wasn't shrinking into the background or looking over her shoulder to see if someone was judging her. She was laughing, surrounded by 30 of her actual friends. The kids who knew her, who liked her quiet humor, who sat with her at lunch. I stood by the bar, holding a glass of sparkling water, just watching her. Marin, the venue coordinator, walked up beside me holding a clipboard. She looked slightly nervous, probably still traumatized by the legal hurricane that had swept through her office weeks prior. "Everything looks beautiful, Sloan," Marin said quietly. "It really does," I replied. "Thank you for fixing it." Marin offered a genuine smile. "I am just glad Piper is getting her day. The final invoice is ready whenever you are." It came out to $3,950. I pulled out my primary credit card, the secure one, and handed it to her. Exactly on budget. That night was flawless. The teenagers ate their body weight in tacos, covered their hands in gray clay, and took hundreds of blurry, laughing photos on disposable cameras Piper had placed on the tables. When it was time for the cake, they sang loudly and off-key. Piper blew out the candles with a smile so bright it could have powered the entire city. Meanwhile, across town, Fallon's birthday was happening. I only know the details because Fallon texted Piper a picture later that week. Without my $14,000, and with Valerie owing the florist cancellation fees, Blair's grand vision had collapsed. They ended up hosting a backyard barbecue at Blair's house. In the photo Fallon sent, she was wearing a nice dress, but she was sitting in a cheap plastic lawn chair next to a dying azalea bush. According to Fallon, most of the influencer friends and cheerleaders did not show up. Once the word got out on Facebook about the stolen credit card drama, Blair's social circle had quietly distanced themselves. It was just a handful of relatives and Fallon's two closest friends. I felt a brief pang of sympathy for Fallon. She was the collateral damage of her mother's narcissism. But I reminded myself that setting a boundary sometimes means letting other people experience the discomfort of their own actions. Fallon was learning a hard lesson about reality, but Piper was learning that she was worth protecting. As the party at the glass house wound down, Piper walked over to me. Her hands were slightly chalky from the clay, and her hair was a messy, beautiful tangle. She wrapped her arms around me and squeezed tight. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "For everything. Not just Tokyo or the party. For fighting for me." I kissed the top of her head. "I will always fight for you, kid." We drove home that night with the windows rolled down, listening to the radio, the trunk full of amateur pottery and leftover cake. The house was quiet when we got back. No frantic text messages. No manipulative voicemails. Just peace. But family toxicity rarely dies a quick death. It usually tries to reanimate itself, hoping you have forgotten the pain. The final test of my new firewall came a few days later. 3 days after Piper's party, a delivery driver buzzed the intercom of our apartment building. I approved the entry, and a few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a massive, incredibly expensive floral arrangement. Dozens of white roses, lilies, and hydrangeas spilling out of a crystal vase. It easily cost over $200. I tipped the delivery driver, carried the heavy vase into the kitchen, and set it on the island. There was a small, cream-colored envelope tucked into the blooms. I opened it. The card read, "Life is too short to hold on to anger. We are family. Let's put this behind us and move forward. Love, Mom." I stared at the delicate handwriting. It was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Notice what was missing? There was no apology. There was no acknowledgement of the fake email. There was no recognition of the fact that she had tried to steal $14,000, or that she had completely dismissed her granddaughter's feelings. There was only a demand for blanket amnesty, packaged in expensive flowers. She wanted me to reset the relationship back to factory defaults without her having to fix the corrupted files. Piper walked into the kitchen, freezing when she saw the flowers. "Who are those from?" she asked warily. I handed her the card. She read it, her face going blank. "What are you going to do?" I did not hesitate. I picked up the heavy vase, walked out the front door, and took the elevator down to the lobby. Our building has a very nice older woman named Maria who works at the front desk. "Hi, Maria," I said, setting the flowers on the reception counter. These were delivered by mistake. "Would you like them for the lobby?" Maria's eyes lit up. "Oh, Sloan, they are gorgeous. Are you sure?" "I am positive," I smiled. "Have a great day, Maria." When I got back upstairs, I pulled out my phone. I sent one final text message to Valerie. "I received the flowers. I donated them to the building lobby. Limiting your access to my life after you committed fraud is not holding onto anger. It is common sense. Do not send gifts here again." I hit send, then immediately went into the settings of my phone and permanently blocked her number. I did the same for Blair. I then called the property management office of my apartment building and formally requested that Valerie and Blair be placed on the permanently banned guest list. If they ever showed up in the lobby, security was instructed to turn them away. That boundary is still firmly in place today. Sometimes, protecting your child does not look like a dramatic screaming match on a front lawn. Sometimes it is terrifyingly quiet. Sometimes it is a locked debit card, an encrypted folder of screenshots, and a one-page letter from a lawyer. Sometimes it is simply changing a permission setting so the people who hurt you can never press the same button twice. Piper is thriving. She got accepted into a fantastic liberal arts college, and her pottery skills are actually getting quite good. She still has the small sketchbook from Tokyo on her desk. She never talks about Blair or Valerie, and I do not bring them up. We simply do not have space for them in our server anymore. My mother still tells the few relatives who will listen that I destroyed our family over a birthday party. That is fine. Let her tell that story. Because the truth is, the party was never the real issue. The issue was that they believed my daughter's place in the world could be reassigned because someone else wanted it. They believed my success was their property. They were completely wrong. So, I turn it over to you. My mother still tells relatives I blew up the family over a party. I say I simply patched a critical vulnerability in my life's network. Was I too harsh? Should I have let them have the party to keep the peace? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about shining a light on toxic family dynamics, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay safe and remember to check your permissions.